But this, I think, is the most fascinating. How do partisans talk about their own party? Right? So among Democrats and Democratic leaners, 32% say Democrats are the party with strong leaders. I mean, of their own kind, right? 82% of Republican leaders say that about the GOP. Only 41% of Democrats say they're the party that gets things done of their own kind.
And that's why the Democrat Party is doomed. You know, this is a unique poll in the sense that it's looking at the viewpoint of people within a party at their own party. And the Democrats out there, and again, bear in mind, this is CNN. This is a Democrat channel. This is not the bastion of conservatism. So when they poll their own Democrat people, when they poll Democrats and ask them what their view of the Democrat Party is, and it comes in that horrifically low, the Democrats have an absolutely massive problem. And it quite clearly appears to me, and I think to most people, the problem with the Democrat Party is an abysmal lack of leadership. And just to kind of drive that point home, I'm going to show you two videos, one with Tim Walz and then another with another gentleman, when they're in South Carolina recently. This was several days ago by the time you see this. And they were having a rally, a get-together to talk about the direction of the Democrat Party. And watch these videos and just notice the total lack of leadership. Absolutely zero quantifiable specifics on a direction they think the country should take. Here you go.
We're the people who secured personal freedoms. We're the people who rescue the economy every damn time the Republicans crash it. It's like 2 or 3 times we've had to do this. And you know we're going to have to do it again. Look, we also used to have the competency to get the basic stuff done.
If he can do so much bad in such a small amount of time, why can't we do such good? Let's not just talk about an alternative. Let's not study an alternative. Let's deliver the alternative.
So Tim Walz, of course, making comments that are just as awkward as him trying to shoot a shotgun, or not even shoot a shotgun. He can't even load a shotgun. The problem with Tim Walz is he's incredibly fake. He is a poser. He's pretending to be something that he is not. And I've commented on that in other videos as well. But here he goes again. There he's talking about Democrats coming in and saving the economic day for the country, which is absolutely not the case. You know, I've been alive long enough to remember gas lines during Jimmy Carter, and then it was Reagan, Republican, that came in and just made very basic yet fundamental change to the economy. And we had fundamental, just incredible record-breaking growth after the Democrats, in that case, Carter, completely screwed up the economy. I could say the same thing about Clinton. Now, it's true he balanced the budget, but that was after the country. You have to remember the midterms. You know, President Clinton became president. Hillary Clinton was trying to change the healthcare system. She was completely unelected. The country absolutely despised it. The Clinton, just everything seemed to be falling apart. You come to the midterms and it's a landslide election in favor of Republicans everywhere. And then he said, okay, let's see if we can balance a budget, which he was able to do in no small part because of Newt Gingrich, Republican, Speaker of the House at the time. But then we could talk about Obama, who absolutely did not do wonders for the economy. He didn't. He spent his time creating hate and discontent within the country and towards the country. Remember his apology tour that he went on overseas. So Obama didn't do miracles for the economy. And gosh, going back to Clinton, you think about the trade agreements that sent jobs overseas to places like Mexico. And of course, then the Pacific. And we know how that story ended up. We're dealing with it today. But then speed forward from Obama to Biden, that was an absolute disaster. You know, from an economic standpoint, it was a train wreck. I mean, interest rates increased at an incredible rate. Just everything tightened up. Money tightened up. Home sales went down. Everybody felt that. Gas prices up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He absolutely didn't. So I'm trying to figure out who in the heck Tim Walz is talking about as far as Democrats saving the economy that the Republicans have goofed up. And I don't think you're going to be able to find true quantifiable examples of that, let alone 2 or 3 times. But that's the point. I mean, the man does not know what he's talking about. There's absolutely no leadership. And then the other guy, absolutely zero specifics. We're going to be a party of what? I mean, why can't you just say, we're going to focus on this, but make it specific? We're going to bring jobs back to this sector of the economy, but they don't do that. It's almost as if, and I'm truly beginning to believe, Democrats don't have anybody that has that leadership quality that the Democrat voters are looking for. They have a bunch of community activists. They have a bunch of people who are great at stirring up hate and discontent between different groups of the population. They do wonders at talking about, we're for, individual rights and control over their own bodies. Well, what the heck is that? And quite frankly, it appeals to Republicans in a different way than it does to Democrats. So Democrats have a massive problem. It's not just the lack of leadership from the Democrat Party and Democrats looking around trying to figure out who in the heck within their party has that leadership ability, and they're coming up empty. The Democrats are losing multiple demographics, and it's more than multiple. I mean, let's talk about the union voter. They're losing the union vote. And they're losing it because they don't have leadership. They're not focusing on an issue. And at the same time, President Trump is actually quantifiably, specifically delivering benefits to union workers. Look at what he did with Nippon Steel in Pennsylvania, which is typically a Democrat state. It's one of the critical swing states. And there's President Trump figuring out how to bring jobs to the steel industry in Pennsylvania, and the workers in Pennsylvania are loving it. So how do you think that's going to work for the Democrats? And the answer is it's not going to work well, because when those people go to vote in Pennsylvania and they remember how much the Republicans and President Trump quantifiably helped improve their lives, how do you think they're going to vote? It's not just the union voter. I've done a whole separate video on the black vote coming back to Republicans, and that is absolutely the case. It's happening, and we see it more and more. We just had another example, shifting gears a little bit, of a Democrat becoming a Republican. Take a look at this clip.
A longtime member of the Kentucky General Assembly switching to the Republican Party, marking an end to all Democrat representation in rural Kentucky. It's a major blow to state Democrats who usually held a stronghold in rural areas.
So once again, we have politicians, and it's not just politicians, but in this case, a politician switching parties, which is not good for the Democrat Party. But let's go back to talking about demographics that the Democrats are losing. Let's talk about the youth vote. The majority of Gen Z voters voted for Donald Trump, and that was a huge blow to Democrats. Look at how men are voting. I'm talking older men, middle-aged, young men. They're so sick and tired. I'm talking about men in general now, of being labeled the problem by Democrats and certainly by women. You know the phrases. It's the old white male ruined the country. You see the TV commercials where there's a middle-aged guy and he can't even figure out how to replace a light bulb, and the woman comes into the picture and she does it blickety-split like it's no problem. I mean, just making men look like the idiots they are not, by the way. There's a commercial running right now where there's a couple and the apparent husband doesn't know where to put the ketchup. Does it go in the fridge or does it go in the pantry? Well, first of all, who gives a damn? I mean, put it in the fridge, put it in the pantry. It's not like we're talking about a head of broccoli. Okay, when's the last time you saw a container of ketchup spoil, whether it was in the pantry or the fridge? But it's making my point. Men are sick and tired of being portrayed as just a bunch of idiots. I get to put a label on the ketchup container, which never spoils, to make sure, thank goodness to my wife or the woman in my life, that she was smart enough to tell me where to put the bloody ketchup. Who cares? What matters is men are sick and tired of that. And as a result, they're, of course, shifting more conservative. You see it in colleges. You've got men having baptism parties. These are guys that you typically think of as having some drunk fest frat party. And instead, you hear more and more often they're having baptismal parties. which is another problem. Not only are Democrats losing that youth vote and certainly using across all spectrums, whether it's black, Latino, white, they're losing the male vote more and more and bringing some women with them. But from a Christianity standpoint, the population seems to be going back to more basic fundamental Christian values. And quite frankly, no offense to the ladies, but that again seems to be men. Men want to find somebody or something to partner with. That's what we do. That's why we're here. We provide, we protect, we want to start a family. And when women's giving us the stiff arm, men are like, okay, well, I'm gonna find something I can partner with that's bigger than me. And I'm talking men of all ages, boys, young men, middle-aged men, older men, going straight back to Christianity and God and saying, okay, all right, sir, all right, God, I'm forming a relationship with you and I want to tighten that up. So the Democrats are definitely losing what little persuasion they had there, driving a further rift between, say, Christian and not quite as religious. And that doesn't bode well for the Democrats and their whole abortion right program, because as more people go Christian and tend to side with focusing on the protection of life versus abortion, that won't help the Democrats. But look at the Latino vote. And I'm going to run a video in a second which quantifies the number of Latinos that are switching from Democrat to Republican. Take a look at this.
According to the latest polling, President Trump has a 59% approval rating among Hispanics, and that is up 22 points in a month. Lily Gil-Valletta joins me now. Lily, what's behind this uptick? We've got all these deportations, and yet the approval rating goes straight up. What's going on?
Well, Stuart, it goes back to the economy, or as we have heard from strategists, it's the economy, stupid. It really is. At the end of the day, Latinos voted with their wallet, and we saw that spike. I mean, President Trump secured 46% of the Hispanic vote. That was a drastic increase from the previous election cycle. And at the end of the day, we're seeing how that is resonating despite the border narrative, because we want both prosperity as well as safety for our families. Many of us that are immigrants like myself who have worked really hard for this American dream, and anything that keeps it alive is what our community is voting on.
That's huge. I mean, that is huge. So here you have the Democrat Party. And I swear the reason they opened the border was because somehow, some way in their minds, they were going to get more Democrat votes. We know that in some of the states in the country, people here illegally can vote in some local elections. California, Maryland, that's where Garcia is from. And his rep went down to El Salvador. Anyway, we know that in some states, illegals can vote in local elections. So maybe Democrats thought they'd open the borders and all of a sudden they get all these Latinos to vote for them. Who knows what they were thinking? But the reality is Latinos are increasingly not identifying with the Democrat Party. And, clue for the Democrats, Latinos tend to be hardworking, family-oriented, Christian. They are not attracted to the whole LGBTQI+. So what Democrats are doing as they lose demographics, they focus on other demographics like LGBTQI+, or whatever it is now. I can't keep track of it. But that ideology is offensive to, quite frankly, black vote, white vote, and certainly the Latino vote. So Democrats are really in a pickle. And my concern for Democrats is not just do they not have leaders, Democrats don't even know how to talk anymore. They pick words that are offensive to people or don't even make sense to people. So watch this clip on the whole Latinx. We can't call people Latinos, Hispanic. The Democrats want us to call them Latinx, whatever the heck that means. Watch this clip.
Lily, the Washington Post criticized Democrats for using left-leaning buzzwords like Latinx, for example. Did these woke terms hurt Democrats in the election? I want to ask, do you describe yourself as Latinx?
Well, my firm does a lot of market research. We work with big corporations that want to understand the growth of Hispanics as a market. And we, in our data, saw that less than 3% of Hispanics even knew what that term meant or affiliated with the term to begin with. We are Latinos, we are Hispanic. Don't create a new label that we don't even understand. We have yet to know where it even came from. So absolutely, when it comes to identity, when you're all of a sudden adopting labels that were maybe created somewhere in a research room and not including us, it's going to alienate the community. It's back to the basics.
So there you go, Democrats. I mean, you are literally picking words that the target audience has no clue about what you're talking about. And how do you think that makes them feel about the Democrat Party? And the proof is in the numbers. They're leaving the Democrat Party. So thank you, Democrats, once again, for helping the Republicans. And I'll end on this, and it has to do with word choice. So I'll put that chart up again and focus on the word equity versus equality. The Democrats, and you need to understand this, the Democrats are hijacking words that already have an existing definition and mutating it or attempting to mutate it into something else. Woke had a definition, has nothing to do with what the Democrats call woke. Progressive had a positive definition, nothing to do with what the Democrats are trying to mutate it into. And this whole equity, equality, equal opportunity is a noble thing. Equity to Democrats has a definition, so it seems attractive. Equity to the Democrats means equality of outcome. That is part of critical theory. That comes from Marxism. It's a fact. Critical theory was created by Marxists in this country in the late 1930s. I'm talking about Adorno, Mancuso, and Horkheimer, at least. Those guys created critical theory to create oppressor and oppressed groups, put them into conflict, hijack existing words like woke, progressive, equity, and create this conflict. The problem with equity is it's an impossibility by design. Okay, none of us are going to achieve equalities of outcome. I'll be specific in a second. But the Democrats and the left wing of the Democrat Party did that on purpose because they want to create conflict. They want people to be miserable, feel disenfranchised, and the Democrats play into the emotions of those people and get them to vote for them. It ain't rocket science. That's exactly what they're doing. But equity, equality of outcome doesn't work because it's an impossibility. Give you an example. The NBA. How many 5'8" tall white guys who are uncoordinated and have horrible eye-hand coordination do you see starting in the NBA? Zero. Okay, but according to the Democrats, the woke, progressive, Marxist left wing of the Democrats, equality of outcome, they should be there. But why aren't they there? They aren't there because it doesn't work, folks. It doesn't work, but it doesn't stop Democrats from trying anyway. And that really points to the problem and gets back to the point of the video, which is Democrats are doomed from a voter and an election standpoint. It seems as if there's a complete and total disconnect from Democrat leadership to Democrats and the population. And I'm not quite sure Democrats know how to figure their way out of that. Let me know what you think about that down in the comments below. I'm really curious. I can see it from where I am in the country, but we all live in different places and associate with different folks in our lives. Let me know what you think on the ground about Democrats, if you know them. And if you are a Democrat, how are you feeling about your leadership? I'd be really, really curious to read about what you thought down in the comments below. Let me know also down in the comments below the direction you think the country is taking. There is a lot going on. We talked about Nippon Steel bringing jobs back to Pennsylvania, bringing manufacturing back to this country. And that's one thing about President Trump. It's a roller coaster. But when he says he's going to do something, he does it. And that's just one example. What about the Latino vote? I'd be real curious to see what you thought about that in the comments below as well. The Democrats, it's such a bizarre thing to see. The border's just wide open under the Biden administration. 10 to 20 million people came into this country illegally. Why? Why did the Democrats do that? And I'd be real curious to see what you think in the comments below. And if they were trying to get voters for the Democrat Party in the form of illegals, transit, who knows? it seems to backfire because the Latino community is shifting more and more conservative. Be curious to see what you think about that in the comments below as well. At any rate, I hope you enjoyed the video, got something out of it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Want to see more like it, subscribe, share it with somebody you think may be interested in the topic. And as always, until next time, God bless. Love y'all.